Alright, lean in for a second. Because what I'm about to tell you is not the version of Ogoni history you were taught in school. In fact, most history books quietly skip this part, and that silence was not accidental. For years, we've been told the Ogoni people are just one of the many small ethnic groups in the Niger Delta. No big origin story. No deep past. Just there. But that story is incomplete. And honestly, it's lazy. The truth is, the Ogoni people did not just appear on this land. Ogoni history is old, layered, intentional, and deeply rooted in migration, survival, and resistance. Long before Nigeria existed. Long before colonial borders. Even before oil changed everything. The Ogoni people already knew who they were. According to oral traditions passed down through elders, folktales, and family lineages, the Ogoni traced their origins to ancient migrations from the east and central regions of what we now call Africa. These were not random movements. They were deliberate journeys, driven by the search for fertile land, safety, and autonomy. When the Ogoni ancestors arrived in the area we now know as Ogoniland, they didn't conquer it through war. That's important. They settled. They negotiated with nature. They learned the rivers, the soil, the forests, and the seasons. This land wasn't just occupied. It was understood. And that relationship with the land became the foundation of Ogoni identity. In ancient Ogoni society, land was not a commodity. It wasn't something to be sold off casually. Land was ancestral. Sacred. A trust between the living, the dead, and the unborn. That belief alone already separates the Ogoni from many surrounding cultures. Now here's the part history books rarely explain. The Ogoni were not centralized under one king or empire. There was no single throne, no all-powerful ruler. Instead, power was decentralized. Communities governed themselves through councils of elders, age grades, and respected family heads. This system made Ogoni society incredibly resilient and incredibly difficult to control. Think about it. If there's no single king to bribe, overthrow, or manipulate, how do you dominate the people? You can't. And that's exactly why colonial authorities struggled with Ogoniland. British records from the colonial era often describe the Ogoni as stubborn, uncooperative, or difficult. But what they really meant was this. The Ogoni refused to surrender their identity. They refused forced labor. They resisted imposed chiefs. They questioned foreign authority. And for that, they were labeled a problem. But even before colonialism, the Ogoni already had a strong moral and social code. Justice was swift but communal. Crimes were not just offenses against individuals, but against the entire community. Shame was a powerful tool. So was honor. Children were raised with stories, not textbooks. Stories about ancestors. Stories about consequences. Stories about why greed destroys communities. This is how history survived, mouth to ear, generation to generation. And that brings us to language. Ogoni is not a single language. It is a family of languages, Kana, Gokana, Tai, Ilim, each with its own expressions, proverbs, and worldview. That diversity tells us something powerful. It means the Ogoni people were never a monolith. They were a federation of related communities, bound by shared values, not forced uniformity. Now here's the part many people don't like to talk about. Because the Ogoni were not expansionist. Because they did not build empires. Because they focused inward, on land, family, and community. They were often underestimated. And in history, being underestimated can be dangerous. When oil was discovered beneath Ogoniland, that ancient bond between people and soil suddenly became a threat to powerful interest. A people who believe land is sacred will not give it up easily. A people without kings cannot be easily silenced. That resistance didn't start in the 1990s. It didn't start with Ken Saro-Wiwa. It started centuries earlier, with ancestors who believed survival without dignity was not survival at all. So when history books reduce the Ogoni origin to a paragraph, or ignore it completely, it's not because the story isn't rich. It's because the story is inconvenient. It reminds us that long before modern politics, the Ogoni already practiced environmental stewardship, already valued community over profit, already understood that progress without justice is destruction. And maybe, just maybe, that's why the story was never told properly. Because the people who remember where they come from are very hard to erase. And this is only the beginning of the Ogoni story. If you're listening to this and thinking, why have I never heard it this way before? You're not alone. That's exactly why Ogoni Truth Line exists.